I would request Maulana Athar Hussain Nadwi Sahab to please recite some verses from the Holy Quran. Maulana Athar Hussain Nadwi.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum assalam.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا. ولما رأى المؤمنون الأحزاب قالوا هذا ما وعدنا الله ورسوله وصدق الله ورسوله وما زادهم إلا إيمانا وتسليما. من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه فمنهم من قضى نحبه ومنهم من ينتظر وما بدلوا تبديلا. ليجزي الله الصادقين بصدقهم ويعذب المنافقين إن شاء أو يتوب عليهم إن الله كان غفورا رحيما. दर हकीकत तुम लोगों के लिए अल्लाह के रसूल में एक बेहतरीन नमूना है। हर उस शख्स के लिए जो अल्लाह और यौम आखिरत का उम्मीदवार हो और कसरत से अल्लाह को याद करे। और सच्चे मोमिनों का हाल उस वक्त ये था कि जब उन्होंने हमला और लश्करों को देखा तो पुकार उठे कि ये वही चीज़ है जिसका अल्लाह और उसके रसूल ने हमसे वादा किया था। अल्लाह और उसके रसूल की बात बिल्कुल सच्ची थी। इस वाक़े ने उनके ईमान और उनकी सुपुर्दगी को और ज़्यादा बढ़ा दिया। ईमान लाने वालों में ऐसे लोग मौजूद हैं जिन्होंने अल्लाह से किए हुए अहद को सच कर दिखाया। उनमें से कोई अपनी नज़र पूरी कर चुका और कोई वक्त आने का मुंतज़िर है। उन्होंने अपने रवैये में कोई तब्दीली नहीं की। ये सब कुछ इसलिए हुआ ताकि अल्लाह सच्चों को उनकी सच्चाई की जज़ा दे और मुनाफिकों को चाहे तो सज़ा दे और चाहे तो उनकी तौबा कबूल करे। बेशक अल्लाह गफूरुर रहीम है। सदक़ल्लाहुल अज़ीम।
Jazakallah Maulana Athar Hussain. I would like to say in 2 lines the concept, the meaning, that these verses indicate that the best of the models for human guidance is in Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And there have been people who followed it and they got success. And there are unfortunate people who are not getting it and for them there is turmoil. So best is that we adhere to that uswa hasana, that model behavior, and get success in our life. Then I would say that now we come to the welcome and introduction part of this, and for that we have with us Professor Z.M. Khan, Secretary General of the Institute of Objective Studies, and Dr. Henry Tanjung, Vice Director, Postgraduate School, Ibn Khaldun University, Indonesia. So first I would request Professor Z.M. Khan to please give your welcome address. Professor Z.M. Khan. Unmute.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, yeah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Nahmadu nusalli ala Rasulihil Kareem. My brothers and sisters in Islam and in humanity, I take it as a matter of great privilege for me and for the Institute of Objective Studies to participate in this very important function that we are holding. This is to remember the son of Islam and the son of whole humanity who has contributed to the welfare of humanity and in creating a human society. This welcome includes all kinds of sentiments that the people of Institute of Objective Studies have for all those who are participating in it and who will be participating in it, because the whole proceeding is being recorded and it will definitely be repeated again and again in the coming days. Let me introduce a bit the Institute of Objective Studies as well. You know, it's a non-political, non-profit making organization, and it is actually busy in many, many things. And the quantum and the scope of activities of IOS has been increasing. And you know, apart from that, the Institute is receiving a lot of suggestions from various quarters of Indian society and from outside India as well, to take up new projects and to take up new issues. We are trying our level best to cover all of them. The human resource and the financial resource are limited. So we are trying to cover as much area as we can. In view of expanding the scope of our activity, we people are trying to have got new policies and methods. For instance, we have adopted a method of starting our activities in collaboration with other universities and research organizations, and that has given us a boost in terms of thinking new areas and taking up new projects in collaboration. The main area of emphasis for Institute of Objective Studies is its research area. Research we have got of two kinds. One is that we sponsor research and we try to select scholars who will conduct that research. Number two, the scholars all around submit their applications and submit their research proposals, and the Institute, after a proper scrutiny, sanctions those projects and the people carry it out. Second important area is publication. Publication is a big area for us, and we have got our own arrangements of publication. So publication is done by us, distribution is also done by us. Along with it, we have got a section of translation. English, Arabic, Urdu, Hindi, these are prominent languages in which we are trying to have got translations of important books. Apart from that, now we are trying to translate our things in Indian languages, Indian constitutional languages as well, so that our reach increases. Apart from that, we also conduct surveys. For instance, the latest survey we have conducted is to know the attitude and priorities and choice of the young citizens of India who participate in elections, as to what are their areas of preference and what are their important points which they consider at the time of casting their vote. Apart from that, the big area that we cover is the conferences of all kinds, including the local conferences, the national conferences, and international conferences. And I think Institute of Objective has got a very impressive prestige and very impressive record of performance in this area. Apart from that, we also have got limited scholarships for those who are pursuing those themes which are explained in our compendium of research that we have published. These themes are actually approved by the Institute of Objective Studies, and those people who take up these themes, we have got a special concern and a special favor for them. Apart from that, we have got very impressive lecture series on topical themes, and special lectures are organized every now and then. Like in the present series, we have got Ibn Khaldun series of lectures, and we are having it at various centers, because the institute has got 5 chapters also, which are scattered all over India, like that of in Aligarh, in Patna, in Calicut, in Chennai, in Kolkata, and headquarters in Delhi. Apart from that, we have got awards also. Like that, we have got a Lifetime Achievement Award. Shah Waliullah Award also is there with us. We also have got regular publications like that of Journal of Objective Studies, Religion and Law Review, Mutali'at, that is in Urdu quarterly, a newsletter, that again Nuqta-e-Nazar, that is in Urdu, Minaret, it is an online magazine, and this kind of publications are very normal and regular. Apart from that, we have got a research team that works very genuinely on preparing annual calendar of Institute of Objective Studies, and that is also distributed. Because it is research data is given in this calendar, so it is highly popular inside and outside India. Apart from that, we have got a full-fledged library, and that library caters to scholars of all universities which are specifically located in Delhi. So this is the brief that I wanted to present before you about the latest activities of Institute of Objective Studies. I thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah, Professor Zadam Khan. Now we have Brother Dr. Henry Tanjung with us. He is Vice Director, Postgraduate School, Ibn Khaldun University, Indonesia. I request him to give welcome and introduction from his side.
Thank you.
Dr. Henry Tanjung.
Thank you, Professor Wani. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Brothers and sisters in Islam, good morning to everyone here. And thank you for joining us in our 2-day conference of Dr. Muhammad Natsir 2021. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this conference, introducing you to the speakers and attendees who are coming from all over the world today to share knowledge and increase our thinking horizons about Dr. Muhammad Natsir. Today's conference was intended by around 300 participants from more than 30 universities across the continent and 100 institutions across Indonesia, making this conference truly an international conference. The theme of this conference is Personality and Contribution of Dr. Muhammad Natsir as a national and international thought leader in 20th century. We have experts from various fields who will stay with us for the next 2 days, sharing their thoughts, knowledge, and opinions with the rest of us. The major outcomes that we expect from this conference is a recognition to the contribution of Dr. Muhammad Natsir, an Islamic leader, nationally and internationally. We will also be talking about the personality of Dr. Muhammad Natsir as an Islamic leader, which can be exemplified as an example to all leaders today. This conference was held by the Institute of Objective Studies, India, Ibn Khaldun University, Bogor, Indonesia, International Institute of Islamic Thought, USA, and Indonesian Dawah Council. On behalf of Ibn Khaldun University, I would like to introduce all speakers and participants of this conference about this university. Bogor Ibn Khaldun University is the oldest private university located in Bogor City, West Java Province, Indonesia, on 1961. Inspired by a world scholar Ibn Khaldun, this university is named Ibn Khaldun University. The hope is that new Ibn Khalduns will be born, with who are besides scholars also intellectuals, or intellectuals who also scholars, or new Nathirs will be born as new leaders of Islam and new leaders of Unitary Republic of Indonesia. Ibn Khaldun University is an Islamic university founded by famous scholars in Indonesia, including Kiai Haji Soleh Iskandar. Now, Dr. Didi Hilman is acting as chairman of this foundation, and Dr. Endin Mujahidin is acting as a rector. It has 6 faculties, 1 graduate school, and 23 study programs with around 7,500 students. In 2019, Ibn Khaldun University was included in the top ranked 100 national best universities in Indonesia. This university has many lecturers and special alumni who are currently serving as public leaders at the local, national, and international levels. Some of our directors and lecturers are also famous people, like Professor Didin Hafiduddin as Deputy Chairman of the Advisory Council of the Indonesian Ulama Council, Dr. Henry Tanjung and Dr. Irfan Saukibeik as members of the Indonesian Wakaf Board, and also Dr. Adian Hussein as Chairman of the Indonesian Da'wah Council nowadays. Based on the vision, mission, and also the motto, faith, knowledge, and morality, this university has produced quality graduates in various fields. This university is committed to conducting innovative research to create reciprocal collaborations that benefit society, and also with the IAS India, inshallah. With a strong commitment to Chatur Dharma activities, education, research, community service, and da'wah, Ibn Khaldun University has produced high-standard graduates who are ready to face the business world. Currently, Ibn Khaldun University has collaborated with several foreign universities located in various countries, such as Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Taiwan, Qatar, Jordan, Sri Lanka, Brunei Darussalam, South Korea, Hong Kong, the Philippines, and Russia. Some of the students of Faculty of Islamic Studies came from these countries. Last but not the least, I would like to welcome all the participants coming from Indonesia, Malaysia, Southeast Asia, and other countries, especially the speakers who are willing to join this conference and share their opinion and thinking about Dr. Mohammad Natsir. I would like to conclude my speech by encouraging the attendees to participate in all the activities and discussions for the next 2 days. I wish everyone a successful, safe, and fruitful conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Henry Tanjung, for a very brilliant, excellent introduction of the university, and I believe it's already in global reach. We congratulate you on that. And I believe the vision of the university is great, and pray to Almighty that it proves a big kind of source of knowledge and guidance for the humanity. Thank you for that. Now we have to present the profile of Dr. Mohammad Nassir, the thought leader. And for that, I am requesting Mr. Ahmed Fauzi Nassir, son of Dr. Mohammad Nassir and former trade attaché at Indonesian Embassy at Riyadh, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I request Mr. Ahmed Fauzi Nassir. Please come forward and present the profile. Over to you.
Yeah.
It seems that he has problems to get in. Technical problem. He just called me. So,
Okay, is he there?
Audible as well as visible.
He has joined another name, Ahmed Fauzi Fazir Ma.
yeah.
Ahmed Fazir Ma. He has joined, but I think he is unable to unmute or.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be the problem.
I am sending a request for unmute.
सुनो भेजो ना इसमें कुछ थोड़ी कहना होता है उसको अच्छा नहीं So please unmute yourself.
Yeah, just yeah.
I just called Mr. Fauzi Nasir. He has
Yes.
difficulties to come in. So
Yeah, yeah.
just he has come, but only as a listener.
He has
So
joined.
just
Please.
put in this.
Again,
He has joined, but as a listener.
he's joined.
Okay, and okay, now we are going to have the profile of Dr. Mohammad Nassir, on whom the conference is being held, and to present his profile, we have Mr. Ahmed Fauzi Nassir with us. He's the son of Dr. Mohammad Nassir and former trade attaché at Indonesian Embassy at Riyadh, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I request you, Mr. Ahmed Fauzi Nassir, please present the profile of Dr. Mohammad Nassir. Over to you, Mr. Ahmed Fauzi Nassir.
Put him in the panelist. He is still outside the panelist. He has joined, but still not in the panelist name. Please, the operator.
Okay, I suggest that we may have it later till our...
Okay.
And
all right.
we are honored to have with us His Excellency Datu Seri Dr. Anwar Ibrahim, former Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, whom we know as a global leader with compassion, with harmony, with spirit of sacrifice, and a man who can integrate humanity, and the person who can lead the intellectuals and the policymakers together. I believe that we hear him and request him to inaugurate the conference and deliver the inaugural address. We welcome you, sir, to this conference, and I request you to please present the inaugural address. Over to you, sir. Over to His Excellency Datu Seri Dr. Anwar Ibrahim.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Alhamdulillah
wabarakatuh.
alladhi arsala rasulahu bil huda wa dinil haqq liyuzhirahu 'ala ad-din kullih wa kafa billahi shahida wa usalli wa usallimu ala rasulihil karim wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. I'm of course very fortunate to be meeting the brothers, sisters, I believe, and must congratulate Institute of Objective Studies with University of Khaldun, together with IIT, to organize a very important and pertinent conference. You see, generally, the Islam in this region Southeast Asia, and particularly Indonesia, has been somewhat marginalized. There is hardly any study or analysis among even Islamic workers or Islamic movements or contemporary intellectuals on the unique development of Islam in Indonesia for a variety of reasons, from the first period of Islamization to the formative period of Indonesian independence and surfacing of outstanding leaders, political intellectuals, such as Muhammad Natsir, that we are having this discourse today. So I think it is, of course, very timely, and I believe we have a companion of scholars. I see Kamal Hassan here, Pa Yusuf Kala, and a number of others who have actually real direct experience knowing Bapak Muhammad Natsir and also studying him. And some, of course, followed his journey directly into politics and in Dewan Da'wah Islamiyah Indonesia. I am fortunate because as a young man and a student at University of Malaya, had the opportunity to attend some conferences, and leaders of HMI those days, the Muslim Students Organization Indonesia, brought me to see as early as 1969, 70, 71, just post confrontasi. You know, in the history of Malaysia, Indonesia, there was a period under Sukarno where he declared virtual war, confrontation against Malaysia. And shortly after that, then we were sent initially as students to meet the radical students of Indonesia. And it's interesting, I was brought to see Marhum Muhammad Natsir by Fahmi Idris and Eki Shahrudin, I remember very well. Of course, I was thrilled by this personality. Former Prime Minister, a great intellectual, a very known and popular leader who has been in prison and virtually has no position, but you can see stream of supporters who express their devotion and love and affection because of his ideas. And the simplicity of his surroundings, I mean, much deliberated many places, including the recent account. I mean, there are hundreds of books with me here about Natsir, particularly in Indonesia. I must congratulate our scholars in Indonesia who have written, so many accounts on Natsir, and 100 years of Natsir, and a great one, a good one by Luqman Hakim too. So I think I'm not here to compete, except to share some experience of mine, particularly in the realm of ideas and thought, because he's a multifaceted Renaissance man in many ways. He writes prolifically in a very prolific manner in the initial Capital Selector, and this is of course a reprint. Interesting enough, I have the original print by Van Hoof of Holland at that time. And let me summarize using the latest account by Audrey Kahin, the wife of the famous Kahin, when she managed to bring up the reformist ideals of Natsir, consistent from the 30s when he wrote for Pembela Islam and republished under Capital Selector, which I will of course deal with because this is where the initial ideas being formed and formulated by Natsir. But he was always very strong in his faith and moral values, his adherence to Islam and Islamic ideals, his interpretation of the Quran and the Sunnah Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, understanding, and a great da'i from the beginning. And in the 30s, he was already involved initially with Hassan, but what's important is his debate, very known literary discourse in Pembela Islam, debating on nationalism, on modern Turkey under Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, on the ideas of some modernists in Egypt, like Sheikh Abdul Razak in Al-Islam wal Usul Hukum, about Islam and nation state, which is totally different. I'm not going to enter to that, but to suggest that this has gone through when he was in his 20s, at a very young age, writing prolifically on Islam and modernity, and the need to deepen our understanding from the set of rituals to the relevance of Islam in society and in the nation. I must again commend Professor Diliano, who summarized some of these brilliantly in his Modernist Muslim Movement of Indonesia, Gerakan Modern Islam Indonesia 1900-1942. Well, you see, I'm getting excited because I love him. This is one of the great, outstanding contemporary leaders that have influenced me personally and Abim when I led. You know, and there was a time when we had great movements in the Middle East, like the Ikhwan or Jamaat Islami, and whilst we benefited immensely from their experiences, I thought from my limited experience and the work in Abim, we were much more influenced by the direction of Indonesia or Indonesian Islam under Masyumi or Muhammad Natsir. Is more inclusive, is accommodate the interests of Islam and Muslims, 90%, but then always take into consideration to try and appreciate, understand, tolerate, include the sentiments of the Hindus, the Buddhists, and the Christians from the very beginning, and very entrenched in cultural sentiments and values. It is Islam, but not dogmatic nationalist, but very nationalistic in the more liberal context, promoting the language, the literature, and that is something which I consider exceptionalism of Muhammad Natsir as an intellectual, a public intellectual, and political leader. Now, the philosopher thinker from France, Roger Garaudi, once said that if we show interest and affection for the great leaders, it is not enough to bury the ashes of the dead, but to rekindle its flame. That's why Manzoor Alam Sahab, it is commendable that your team with Ibn Khaldun University and MIT takes the trouble. I mean, it is odd for India to talk about Natsir. I mean, it is something refreshing, you see. And I think it is not usual, you know. And I think it shows your foresight and understanding and appreciating the contribution of all our brothers throughout the world. Now, you know, what strikes me, and this I've said before in some of our earlier seminars, you know, in his Capital Selector, which of course was a text in our days, and his Fiqh al-Da'wah, which we republished. Interesting that Abim, those days, republished many of his works, and which I think referred to in this book when I mentioned that Natsir, when talking about development, you see, you must not talk about progress and development and at the same time destroy. What you develop, institutions, buildings, structures, industries. What you destroy, morality, there's oppression of workers, there is complete neglect, in the sense to allow for grinding poverty and gross inequality, to use this more popular parlance of today. But he thought of it long before this became narrative in intellectual circles as we observe at present. Now, I wanted to quote Kahin because there is a time when there was, when Natsir was involved in this petition of 50 leaders and scholars, and therefore he was barred, he was completely not only marginalized, but denied any opportunity to serve as a normal citizen in Indonesia. But his consistent message from the 30s to the 80s, when he criticized Muslim societies, including Indonesia, where its upper strata have become grossly materialistic, selfish, and shorn of social conscience, with this development being accompanied by a widening gap between the rich and the poor. This was originally from George Kahin in memoriam of Mohammad, and here referred to by Audrey Kahin, Islam, Nationalism and Democracy, a political biography of Muhammad Natsir, quite a recent publication. I think it's about 2012. Now, I mentioned earlier an example, a striking example, other than the debate on nationalism, asabiyah, what is allowed, what is disallowed, which was debated in the 30s and sometimes until the present, causing confusion among our intellectuals. And this obsession or admiration for so-called modern Turkey at the expense of their identity and their Islamicity. This was also debated in the 30s. And it's interesting enough, this was between Sukarno, who was enchanted by modern Turkey, and Natsir, who actually cautioned against this adulation without looking at the substance. So in terms of the realm of ideas, I would refer to a name which is, well, I should say unheard of in this region, or in Asia for that matter. Natsir in Capital Selector suddenly introduced a name, a Belgian historian, Henry Pirenne. Now, nobody talks about it. There was no reference. I asked a lot of many scholars of historiography just whether they made references. Hardly any. Now, of course, he at length he quoted and debated on Snook Hugronje, who wrote the 2 volumes on the Achinis and Mecca in the later part of the 19th century, which was a thesis on the Dutch, that prompted later the Dutch ethical policy to secularize Indonesia. And the issue of secularization was discussed in his debate with Sukarno, and Hugronje came to mind. But then he introduced the name Henry Pirenne. It's interesting, when I was in Washington, D.C., I made sure that our brother Jamal Bazanji ordered as many books as possible by Henry Pirenne, which is not known among the intellectual circles in Washington, Mohammad and Chalaman, and A History of Europe. Now, what is the Pirenne thesis? The Pirenne thesis states somewhat clearly that the point of departure between the old culture or civilization and the new modern civilization must be in terms of values and ideas, modernity. And that is why in this book, Mohammad and Chalaman shows proof, sent a very fundamental message about the critical date or time where we can determine the state, the new modern state of affairs. Only with Muhammad, in this battle, Islam and Chalaman at that time, Charles Martel and Chalaman then, only with the advent of Islam, Europe understands modernity. And this was actually, in terms of history and understanding of society, is a tour de force. Now, 10 years later, no, probably 30 years later, our great sociologist, scholar, thinker, Hussein Alatas, who's very known for his works like Myth of the Lazy Native and also Intellectuals Living Societies, in his paper to the Conference of Asian Historians in 1960, mentioned this Henry Pirenne. Okay? And as you know, Hussein was associated with Natsir in Bogor or Bandung in their constituency debate on the constitution for before the independence of Indonesia. And he said, modern Malaysia must not be seen by or determined by the printing or advent of the British, but advent of ideas. And finally, in 71, his brother, Professor Naqib Al-Atas, also one of my sheikhs, then wrote Islam in the history of Malay culture and society, where he made reference again to the Pirenne thesis. You can imagine. This was the beginning was in Capita Selecta, okay, where he wrote in the 1930s. And it became a tour de force in the entire study of Islam and Malay Indonesian society in the 60s and the 70s. And these two texts still become quite pillars in terms of intellectual advancement. So it's very interesting here to see the relevance of his ideas and thinking. Of course, he elaborates about Islam in his role as in Dewan Da'wah, for example. It's clear the understanding of Islam, the faith, moral values, anti-corruption drive. He got into lots of trouble because of his strong disagreement about against corruption. So when we talk about Natsir, to my mind, I think we need to talk about or focus on his ideas for societal reform, for the understanding of history and society, and the need for Islah in our society. When he talks about development, he talks about progress, he talks about education, or issues of governance. This central pillar of Islam and ethics, anti-corruption, and inclusivity. Of course, here in Malaysia, where we felt it is more pressing because the nature that Muslims come to about 60%. Now, here was a country that he represents 90% Muslims, but he made it very clear, the clarion call to be in the cause of humanity, in the cause of freedom, and very strong Democrat. And I should say that in modern and contemporary society, he was a great Muslim Democrat, I must say. That I think I would end at that, because that happens to be, this subject happens to be my focus, or I probably follow. My Indonesian friends know that any book, any article published on Indonesian Islam or Natsir, that I make sure that it's available on my desk. And here in our society, there was a big event in commemoration of his 100 years of Natsir His books are being published. Some, I mean, other than what I said about Indonesia, some of the works are of course published here. Too many of them, but I want just to show that mainly Abim and the universities here have taken lots of interest in this study, understanding of this great Indonesian and a great Muslim. I must again thank you very much for this opportunity. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Datu Shari Dr. Anwar Ibrahim, former Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia. I believe that with the very, authenticated references, he presented the great personality of Dr. Mohammad Natsir in its right context as the leader of his times and for future. And he was understanding the challenges, and he was knowing what to give and what was the future. So he was a thorough Democrat, he was a reformist, he was an intellectual, understanding things, he could stand for right things, he could be meeting challenges with confidence, and he wanted that there should be straightforwardness in approach, and that's how he could be even believing, a very great believer of his faith. He was at heart accommodative, he was secular, and he was a link between the past and the present while maintaining the values. I think these are the features of a very great personality, and that was definitely manifested by Dr. Mohammad Natsir in his times, in his life, and that's what was being said by our very beloved leader across the borders, Dr. Anwar Ibrahim Sahab. Now I'm going back to Mr. Ahmed Fauzi Natsir, the son of Dr. Mohammad Natsir, that if you have joined, please present the profile of Dr. Mohammad Natsir. Mr. Ahmed Fauzi Natsir, over to you, please.
Yes. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank the committee of the International Conference on Personality and Contribution of Dr. Mohammad Natsir as a national and international thought leader in the 20th century. In this conference, we are allowed to share our view on our father, Mohammad Natsir. Of 6 siblings, 3 of us are currently alive, namely Mrs. Hasna Faiza, Mrs. Aisyah Tul Asriah, and myself, Ahmad Fauzi Natsir. When our father, Abba, A-B-A, Abba was family life. When Abba was alive, he life get so powerful and helping us and find right path in our life because it coupled with the light of our Umi, our mother, Nur Nahar, which her name means the light of the day. Why was that? Because in the journey of life, Abba and Umi were always together, whether it's difficulty or happiness. How did Abba educate his children? He never forced his will on his children, especially in our choice of education. He would remind us to choose our type of education, which must be according to our hearts and abilities. Even when detained by Sukarno regime many years ago, Abba concern for our education never stopped. That concern is still the most precious thing in our life. Abba was really scolded, slapped at his children. Nevertheless, he would reprimand us if our actions were not pleasing to him. On the other hand, to deepen our religious knowledge, Abba invited a religion teacher to teach us from when we were in elementary school to high school. That the religious education never stopped in the forest during the PRI or government revolutionary Republic Indonesia struggle. Even though there was no religion teacher, because Abba immediately stepped into the educated us with the help of his staff. Abba taught us to be democratic, but not assertive, but out of control. Indeed, Abba is the type of person who has a far-reaching vision and always takes a lot of consideration before taking action. Abba's democratic attitude was evident when we were arguing about anything at the dinner table. He likes to smile when watching our debate. This democratic attitude affects the way we think about how to face all challenges of life. In politics, Abba never asked or encouraged us to follow any political party, even his party.
ये इंडोनेशिया से बोल रहे हैं
Abba's attitude was because he knows or trade clearly when he were involved in his struggle. In later time, when his three of us became civil servants, Abba wisely said, "Fight there and keep our good name." You are very grateful for being educated by him, how to live in society, regardless social level in all classes. The attitude is the Islamic way of life that we got from Abba and Umi. Moreover, living simply during those years made it easy for us to interact with people on a different social level. It's a wonder that since childhood, we must always treat it household assistant, driver, or other parts of our family. Abba always reminds us, be smart to be grateful for your blessings. And also advise always to maintain relationship with the close family and relative Abba and Umi. This message we always hold dear in our life. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Jazakallah, Mr. Ahmed Fazi Natsir, for presenting the profile of Dr. Mohammad Natsir. It was good to know many things about his personality, and we are grateful to you for giving us time in this profile to this conference. We are grateful to you. Make more contributions. Now we're going to request His Excellency Dr. Yusuf Kalla, former Vice President of Republic of Indonesia,
But he's gone in.
to speak, but he is attending a funeral, and that's how we will take him later whenever he is able to join. But at the same time, let us hear the words of wisdom from Dr. And he is the chairman of the House Committee for Inter-Parliamentary Cooperation, the House of Representatives of the Republic of Indonesia. Dr. Fazli
Napol gambar. Napol gambar tuh.
Institute of Objective Studies.
Takut kelihatan, Papa geser dulu deh ini. Laptopnya Pak, ke kiri Pak.
Good morning.
Ya, di laptopnya
Nah,
kiri.
ini hidupin dulu.
Udah matiin. Enggak,
We cannot see the video.
Jangan ke sini ke jendela.
Sorry, we cannot see the video.
Kita bocor muncul lelanya.
University Khaldun and International Institute of Islamic Thought, USA, for the invitation. It is an honor for me to join this important conference to promote academic endeavors of understanding personalities, opinions, and cultures across the globe. In this opportunity, I would like to share my views about Islam, democracy, and
We cannot see the video actually.
It's all silent. Dr. Sahab, what is happening? It's all silent.
Hello, Professor Wani, we cannot hear you.
Now, yes, it is audible.
Professor M. Kamal Hassan, former rector, International Islamic University, Malaysia, is here with us, and he will present the keynote address for the conference. He has been a scholar known for decades now, and we are happy to have him with the Institute of Objective Studies as well. I request him that kindly present the keynote address for the conference. Over to Professor M. Kamal Hassan, former rector, International Islamic University, Malaysia.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم
بسم الله
السلام.
الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. والصلاة
Professor Kamal Hassan, you mute your microphone.
He is
Muted.
I'm mute.
No.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, now, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen. Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-'aliyyil 'azim. First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for it is by His grace and mercy that I'm able to join this important international conference on our dear father, Dr. Muhammad Natsir. I'm very honored and privileged to be invited to present a keynote address. I am very honored to also be speaking after Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, who knew him very well and could give you many information about Bapak Muhammad Natsir. But I'm very privileged to be able to share some of my impressions about Bapak Natsir. The title of my paper is, I think Dr. Zaman Khan is having problems, so please help him. Glimpses of political, intellectual, and religious thought and contribution of Bapak Muhammad Natsir, an extraordinary Muslim leader of the 20th century. Indonesia, at that time known as Netherlands East Indies before independence, has produced one of the greatest Muslim political leaders, statesmen, thinkers, intellectuals, and propagators of 20th century Islam in the extraordinary personality of Muhammad Natsir, who was born in 1908 and passed away al-marhum in 1993. Fondly addressed in Indonesia as Pak Natsir by Muslims and non-Muslims alike, he became the most prominent leader of Islamic politics after the Second World War and became the first prime minister of a united post-revolutionary Indonesia in August 1950. By 1949, he was the head of the Islamic Party called Masyumi, which brought together several Islamic political parties under one umbrella. A Western-educated intellectual with strong Islamic foundation, Muhammad Natsir rose rapidly to the top of political prominence within a short revolutionary period. In the 1930s, Natsir became a leading Islamic polemicist who criticized not only Western misconceptions on Islam, but also the domestic propagation of secular nationalism, whose greatest protagonist at that time was Insinyur Sukarno, when he was a young nationalist intellectual, and later when he became the first president of the Republic of Indonesia. There was no doubt that Muhammad Natsir was an exceptionally intelligent, knowledgeable, wise, and compassionate Muslim leader, not only in politics and international relations, but also in Islamic thought, Islamic education, inter-religious dialogue, national and community development, and Islamic propagation or da'wah. He was loved by the people as well as by his colleagues, and highly respected by friends and foes alike. He was considered as among the last of the religio-political giants in Muslim Southeast Asia, and was much sought after by the Muslim intelligentsia and Islamic youth leaders in the region, and particularly in Indonesia, in Malaysia. And earlier we heard from Datuk Sri Anwar how he used to visit Bapak in the early 70s, and was very much impressed by him, and he said that he has been very much influenced by the thoughts and the personality of Bapak Natsir. I just like to mention that I also had the opportunity and also the honor to have met him in his house together with Bapak Muhammad Siddiq, who brought me to the house of Pak Natsir in 1973. And then again in 1993, just a few months before Almarhum passed away, Datuk Sri Anwar and myself visited him at the hospital in Jakarta. Alhamdulillah, at least we could meet our great father at the hospital in 1993. Now, just I'll go into some of the facets of his thoughts and contributions. And I hope, Dr. Moderator, you let me know 5 minutes before I'm supposed to end, okay? Because I have 17 pages or 16 pages.
Okay, sir.
So please be firm with your timekeeping. I will abide by your commandments. As a highly regarded political leader, Islamic thinker, and activist intellectual, his influence was far greater than any other thinkers of Islam or contemporaries of his time. His close friend and contemporary called Hamka, or Haji Abdul Malik Karim Amrullah, 1908-1975, was another famous Islamic religious scholar and propagator of Islam in the Malay Indonesian world. But if Hamka was the most well-known ulama intellectual of his time, then Pak Muhammad Natsir was undoubtedly the intellectual ulama par excellence of most post-independence Indonesia, because the former was educated only in Islamic religious sciences through Arabic, while the latter was formally educated in the secular Dutch-oriented educational system and knew very well the Dutch, German, English, French, Latin, and Arabic. A fantastic achievement for a person at that time. Even now, I don't think it's easy for people to have that kind of linguistic brilliance and coverage. While he also had profound knowledge of the religion and civilization of Islam, which he acquired from Islamic religious institutions and private Muslim organizations. Now, I'm going to quote what George Kahin wrote, and earlier we had Datuk Sri Anwar referring to Audrey Kahin in her latest biography of Pak Natsir. And this quotation, I have been quoting this because this really highlighted the essence of the personality of not his thought, but the personality. And this is what George Kahin said when he met Pak Natsir, when Pak Natsir at that time was a minister of information. He said that here, this is what I'm quoting from his book. Last of the giants among Indonesia's nationalist and revolutionary political leaders, he, that is Muhammad Natsir, undoubtedly had more influence on the course of Islamic thought and politics in post-war Indonesia than any of his contemporaries. By nature, this is a personality, by nature extraordinarily modest and unpretentious, he had a well-deserved reputation for personal integrity and political probity. He always lived simply and with respect to house and attire. I think you will read later on, he was so poor that he had to live in some of his colleagues' homes in the political struggle. And then he says, even in 1950 as prime minister, when I first met him in 1948, this is what Kahin said, and he was the Republic's Minister of Information, I found a man in what was surely the most mended shirt of any official in Yogyakarta. That was his only shirt. Most mended, in other words, he had one shirt and then, it was torn here and then and mended it. And this was worn by a Minister of Information at that time. And I think his officers later on decided to go and buy a shirt and gave him another shirt. As a young Muslim student leader of the Young Islamitan Bond, or Union of Young Muslims of Bandung, and a teacher in the city, Natsir began writing on the subject of Islam in 1929 and 1935, particularly in the magazine Pembela Islam, associated with Ahmed Hassan, a rather hardliner, religious leader of a reformist organization called Persatuan Islam, Persis, to which Natsir aligned himself in those days. His grounding in the knowledge of Al-Quran, Sunnah, and Arabic was deepened by his study of classical as well as contemporary exegesis of the Quran. So he was able to go back to Al-Tabari and so on, Zamakhshari and Ibn Kathir, and later even, that is Fi Zilal al-Quran, and also his Tafsir al-Furqan by his teacher at that time, Ahmed Hassan. Now, he has authored approximately 45 books, monographs, and hundreds of articles in various magazines and journals. And this is something that was not mentioned by Datuk Sri Anwar earlier. When Pak Natsir read what the influential Dutch Orientalist Snoek Hogrunje wrote, namely la solution de la question islamique dépend de l'adhésion des indigènes à notre civilisation. That is, the civilization to the Islamic problem in Indonesia hinges upon the adherence of the indigenous people to our, that is, Western civilization through secular Western education. So Pak Natsir became very much motivated to establish Islamic educational institutions in order to counter the negative effects of secular education introduced in Indonesia by the Dutch. So he was regarded as a perfectionist and philosophical teacher, guru yang perfeksionis, filosofis. He was very concerned with the negative effects of secular education, bearing in mind what Snoek Hogrunje advised to the Dutch government at that time. And this is what Snoek Hogrunje says. This is also in the book, in Capita Selecta, is Western education and learning will be able to liberate Muslim people from the grip of Islam. Now, realizing the negative social and political consequences of the educational and cultural dichotomy of traditionalist and conservative religious education on the one hand, and that of modern secular education on the Muslim community on the other hand, Natsir felt the need to work towards the integration or unification of the two opposing systems so that eventually there would emerge the ulama intellectual and the intellectual ulama ideal types in Indonesian society. Hence, Pak Natsir expressed as early as 1938 the necessity of establishing a higher Islamic college, or what was called Sekolah Tinggi Islam or Universitas Islam in Indonesia. And then he also formed the Association of Muslim Higher Institutions of Learning, Perikatan Perguruan-Perguruan Muslim in Indonesia, with the acronym PERMUSI. The Higher Islamic College was founded in Jakarta in 1945 and was moved to Yogyakarta in 1946. Pak Siddiq knows this very well, and he was the one who shared this information with me more than a decade ago. By 1947, it became the Islamic University of Indonesia, Universitas Islam Indonesia, the first private Islamic university in Indonesia. And as a leading public intellectual, Muhammad Natsir's academic writings not only focus on educational issues, they touch on various social, political, economic, religious, and cultural issues of the time, but in each of them, he would introduce Islamic perspectives. Education in Natsir's intellectual discourse is a process of holistic, spiritual, physical development, which he says, yang menuju kepada kesempurnaan dan lengkapnya sifat-sifat kemanusiaan dengan arti yang sesungguhnya, which leads to the perfect formation and complete development of human qualities in its fullest sense. He explained that the aim of integrated education was none other than to actualize the life of ubudiyah, the life of servitude to Allah, as ordained by Allah in Surah Al-Dhariyat, verse 56. He reiterated that in the worldview of the Quran, it was the knowledgeable scholars who were the truly God-fearing servants of Allah. In 1938, Natsir joined an Islamic political party and became the leader of the Bandung branch until the Second World War. But after that, he joined Masyumi, which was Masyumi is acronym of Majelis Syura Muslimin Indonesia, or Consultative Council of Indonesian Muslims. And later on, he became the leader of Masyumi. And after the war, Masyumi became the most powerful political force and also the voice of Islamic nationalism and patriotism, and also moderation, as opposed to the two contending ideologies of that time of secular nationalism and communism.
Okay, please take another 5 minutes.
Okay, good. Okay, now I will try to skip that. Let me go to okay, I'll skip the polemic between him and Sukarno, because I think Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim also alluded to that earlier, but this is well known, so I'll skip that. I'll just go more to the da'wah content, because Datuk Sri Anwar mentioned that Abim used the book Fiqh Da'wah as one of the texts, and I think it is still very, very relevant to da'wah today. What was said by Pak Natsir in 1967, 68 is still very, very relevant today and still very deep. So I just want to go to that. But once my time is up, you let me know, I will stop immediately. As a prominent Muslim leader of the Muslim Ummah, Natsir's exceptional intellectual, ethical, and spiritual qualities have impressed his close associates as well as the masses. Then I quoted here from his good friend, Bapak Muhammad Rom, but I will skip that because there's no time. Then he also referred to the problem of pluralism at that time. And now, of course, pluralism is a big issue. Religious pluralism is a big issue in Indonesia and also to a certain extent in Malaysia. But Pak Natsir already cautioned not to do what he says, agama gado-gado. You know, there's just mixing together all the good aspects of Islam, the good aspects of Hinduism, the good aspect of Buddhism, put them together and then present a new religion, but agama gado-gado. And so he was against that. And then Yeah, I would say the advent of the new order. The new order, as you know, came after the collapse of Sukarno's regime, and that was led by President Suharto. But unfortunately, after the new order took over in 1966, Pak Natsir and Masyumi were not allowed to be active. They were prevented from active political activities. In fact, Islamic political activism was very much curtailed by the army. That is, I mentioned this, and I will now go to his da'wah. Pak Natsir was known and admired not only for his broad religious knowledge, but also his understanding and wisdom about da'wah in a pluralistic society like Indonesia. And in the first essay in that book, he talked about how divine revelation actually guides the fitrah of human beings to be able to know itself, know God, and then serve God in the proper way. And Pak Natsir spent a lot of time on that. Now I come to the, we have 1 more minute. Can I go to the conclusion now? Okay, I go to the conclusion. That 1.5 minutes, I hope you don't mind. Pak Natsir, this is my conclusion. Pak Natsir was fortunate to witness the collapse of the new order, which had delayed the rebirth of democracy and the spread of reformist Islamic democratic ethics. You know, but the new order was brought down by many of his former students and disciples in the reformist movement. The growth of extremists, then Indonesia witnessed the growth of Islamic or Muslim extremism on the one hand, and then the development of pluralism and also liberalism on the other hand. And I'm coming to the last page now, Doctor. Last page, please. In order to avoid falling into the traps of either this what is called ifrat, this excessiveness, rigidity, immoderation, extremism, that is ifrat, and on the one hand, and tafrit on the other hand, laxity, negligence, liberality. In the 21st century, we're talking about 21st century now, it's crucial and urgent that the younger generation of Muslims learn from the past great leaders of the Ummah in Indonesia, such as Pak Natsir and also Buya Hamka and other exemplaries of the exponents of the Wasatiyah, Rahmaniyah, Insaniyah, and also Al-Hanafiyah, As-Samha, nature of tolerant and magnanimous characteristics of Islam, whereby Muslims live in peace, harmony, and mutual respect with non-Muslim communities without compromising the fundamental principles of Abrahamic faith. This is the last one now, last paragraph. Pak Natsir had spent his whole life in a long, peaceful religio-political struggle, which encompassed the whole dimensions of Islam as a spiritual meeting between God as such and servants of God as such, between Allah as the Khalik and the Ibadullah as such, as a religion of fitrah and as a universal, holistic, and virtuous civilization, because Islam is not just a religion, but a complete civilization. And Buya Natsir quoted the views of some Orientalists at that time. H.A.R. Gibb, I think it was who said that. So in today's world, it would be difficult to find a Muslim religio-political leader who possesses intellectual brilliance with profound knowledge of Western and Islamic civilizations, political wisdom with ethics and probity, moral integrity of a high order, exceptional simplicity and humility, which Kahin had observed, and this is of course my my humble addition that he was also a personality with qalb salim, the sound spiritual heart, because as you know, in that verse, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم. I believe Pak Natsir returned to Allah بقلب سليم. But Pak Natsir had bequeathed, and this is my last sentence, Pak Natsir had bequeathed to the younger generation of Muslims in Indonesia and also in Malaysia and the Malay-Indonesian world his invaluable intellectual ethical legacy, which is still relevant, still very much relevant to the pluralistic, multi-religious and cosmopolitan Indonesian and Malaysian societies, and therefore should continue to be a major source of historical knowledge, intellectual inspiration, and religious motivation for them to work humbly in his blessed footsteps. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Jazakallah, Professor M. We know you are a great scholar and reputed. I am tempted to make comments on your comprehensive keynote address, but we don't have that much time. I would say that you have really done great justice with the theme, and you have presented a very good keynote address, and it has set the tune for the conference for 2 days, different aspects of the life of Dr. Mohammad Natsir, the times where he was living, and then his responses to youth and to the people of the world, to people of Indonesia, his simplicity. I think all the aspects have been given some kind of treatment in your keynote address. And now we are having with us His Excellency Dr. Yusuf Kalla. He is a former Vice President of Republic of Indonesia. Earlier he was in some social gathering. We welcome him to the conference now, and he is giving us some words of wisdom. And I believe that he will, address us with something which he is supposed to because of his position, and at the same time he will be enlightening us. But definitely within the time, because we have few more speakers. Dr. Yusuf Kalla, over to you.
Please.
Please unmute yourself. You are mute. आप कर दीजिए अगर कर सकते. Somebody is helping him.
Okay.
Yeah, now you are audible.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi washabbihi ajmain. Chairman, I'm so sorry I'm late because I just visit the funeral of my friend. That's why I now in the car to back home. Yes, the many speaker honest to talking about Dr. Mohammad Natsir. He is one of Indonesian Muslim leaders who have very variety of his leadership. He's intellectual. I think Professor before has explained how intellectual Dr. Natsir. He writes many books, he has many speech, and he is one thing very important. He is only in high school, but Dutch high schools, but coming with the self-study about Islam, and of course with a mentor of Dr. Hassan, Dr. Chokro Aminoto, Dr. Agus Salim, his mentor of his intellectual is from there. Intellectually, one thing very important for seeing that looking Islam swasatiya, but Islam is ideology. It's one thing that very important is mission, visions in Islam, and intellectually. All knows that he is chairman of Mashumi. Mashumi is one party that's mostly Islamic organization joined together to establish a Mashumi. With his leadership, Mashumi is one of the biggest party at that time in 15s. Besides intellectual, he is heroes, because when Independence Day, he's one of the, including of the Dr. Muhammad Natsir. That's why, and of course, he's politician because he's chairman of Mashumi, with holds this opinion that mostly Islam is ideology for the countries. It is one opposition of Dr. Muhammad Natsir, and of course he's ulama. You know, all know where ulama. And after the last year of his activities is da'i, which da'i and establish a Dewan Dakwah in Indonesia, very important thing, and statement. This is a combination of the many profiles of Dr. Muhammad Natsir, and that's why until now on, it will be usually Indonesian peoples remember what Dr. Muhammad Natsir doing for the country. What main thought of Dr. Natsir I explained with Professor just before, and his opinions usually good after his non-active politicians. He is internationally well known. He is one member of all Muslim Congress, Muktamar Alam Islami, and Rabita Alam Islami, one organization that he's joining together. That's why he's very close with the intellectual from many countries in the world, because he is and one the idea of Dr. Muhammad Natsir, when he is in the party, he say that da'wah through politics. But after he actively in the da'wah organization and politics with da'wah. This is one thing that he usually think about da'wah by always politics, but politics by da'wah. This is one very important thing for Dr. Muhammad Natsir, and we hope that young generation in Indonesia, of course, following what objectively, of course, one country. In politics, he is very remember of the people when Indonesia state countries following federal country in 15 in federal, but with his move in the parliaments and changes from federal country to united countries, unity Indonesian countries. This is one thing that he's remembering of the peoples. He's thinking about that. But Indonesia should be one country, unity of Indonesia, not federal. That's in politics. And that's why if you we're talking about Dr. Natsir, it is one politician, intellectuals, academically, and ulama, and many things. That's why thank you very much for the Institute of Objective Studies, which is discuss about Dr. Natsir. Thank you very much for this possibility. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. I think it was a very great narration from your side, Dr. Yusuf Kalla. We appreciate your joining us and on this great occasion. And now we are having with us again Dr. Fazl Zoon, Chairman of the House Committee for Inter-Parliamentary Cooperation, the House Representative of the Republic of Indonesia.
Okay.
And he will say a few words. I read Dr. Fazl Zoon, please bless with the conference with few words. Few words of wisdom. Okay, please.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable Dr. Muhammad Manzoor Alam, Chairman of the Institute of Objective Studies India, and distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so sorry, I'm also on the way because this is my political party anniversary. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Yes, good afternoon from Jakarta. Yes, peace be upon us all. May I wish you and your family health, safety, and compassion in overcoming the difficult time during this pandemic. And allow me.
Yeah, Dr. Fazli, we heard your video. Now I think you can give briefly some of the opinions, and that will be quite appreciated. God bless you. Thank you so much. Please.
Hello. Okay. So actually, I prepared that because I was not so sure that I can manage my time, doctor. So I sent the video actually, and I heard that the video cannot come out on the screen. But I think I would like to also share a bit view about Dr. Muhammad Natsir, which I also admire because he's not just an ulama, but also a statesman. And I believe that I already wrote in my paper and study about Muhammad Natsir, and I hope everyone can also get the paper, my observation on Natsir's political thought and also his political activities. And Dr. Natsir, especially, I think it's very important for Indonesia because he's the one who proposed the second proclamation of the United Indonesia, Federated States of Indonesia. And that is a very important stage in Indonesian chronicle of history. And I believe should be remembered that he can be called also as the founding fathers of Indonesia. And I just went to Muntok yesterday in Bangka. There's a new province, Bangka Belitung. And I found also the footsteps of Muhammad Natsir when he went to see Sukarno and Hatta and other founding fathers there to prepare the diplomatic roundtable conference before the Rum Royan conference. So I think so many things that can be said about Muhammad Natsir, and I have already mentioned some of that, especially the thought and about Mausi Integral of Muhammad Natsir in my paper, and also in my short remarks in the video. And I hope you can hear that in my video. Thank you very much, Doctor. I'm so sorry, I'm on my way also.
Jazakallah, Dr. I think you have a great responsibility. You are the chairman of the House Committee of Inter-Parliamentary Cooperation. Very great assignment you have. We wish you success in that. And we are grateful to you for joining even after we had played your video.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
God bless you again. And now we have with us the chairman of the Institute of Objective Studies, and Dr. Muhammad Manzoor Alam. I request him that we want to have some words of appreciation from you. Please come out and appreciate us. Yes, you are there and you are at the back, and but we need your appreciation, and please give some words of appreciation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmaduhu wa nasalli ala rasulihil kareem. I will say only 2-3 things. Professor Zadam Khan has given a very good introduction of the Institute of Objective Studies. And we also about the Ibn Khaldun, University of Ibn Khaldun was IIIT. this program on which we are gathering together, that is the personality and contribution of Muhammad Natsir as a national and international thought leaders in the 20th century. This is one of the features and the program of Institute of Objective Studies. The idea behind of this kind of program that at the international level and the national level, let the scholars and the youth especially must know the thought and ideas of those great leaders. They made a huge contribution. Unless they will not be knowing what kind of work has been done, including Dr. Natsir, Muhammad Natsir. They organized for and many top people. So this is one of the idea. The second of the same, that how to protect heritage of Islam and how to promote those ideas globally. Because the world is very small, that's why we are on the Zoom today and we are talking and having this program as a conference. So that is one of the great things. So one must know, especially the youth, unless they will not be knowing the contribution of those great leaders. And that has to be not only to protect the heritage in that sense, but also to promote through the knowledge, through education, through communication, through collaboration, through cooperation, and hopefully it will be leading, it will be giving a great idea to the youth to take care about Islamic vision for the humanity at large. Because the Quran make it very clear, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي Adam. We have to work from that point of view, how to make the honoring of the progeny of Adam alayhi salam. So this is one of the great things. I have written, I will not ask to read it because we have to save the time. Second thing and the third thing, we request brothers from the Ibn Khaldun University and the Indonesian government and Indonesian Diwan Dawa, that the work of Muhammad Natsir must be translated, all his work must be translated in English, so that we are in India, we are having 18 official languages. So we will also try to translate in Indian languages so that people of this country also should know what kind of the great leaders, including Dr. Muhammad Natsir, who has contributed not only for Indonesia, but globally, internationally. The last thing I will say, this is the beginning. We can plan for the future point of view. Our system is that all the proceedings will be published in collaboration, inshallah, and that proceedings will be also having to have some of the joint programs so that some of the researches can be done. Views of Muhammad Natsir, inshallah. So let me conclude that Institute of Objective Studies has published more than 500 books, research books on the different aspects of life, whether it is a law, constitution, Islamic aspects, etc., economics, etc. So, for point of view, because my throat and eyes also not support, so that's why I will just stop at this moment. Once again, I really appreciate the collaboration, the efforts which have been made by Muhammad Siddiq, and also the brothers from the Ibn Khaldun University. So now we'll not request anyone to read out my talk which I have drafted. That is inshallah will continue for the future point of view. Jazakumullah khairan wa khairan jaza. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah, Dr. Muhammad Manzoor Alam, Chairman, Institute of Objective Studies, for your words of appreciation. I think the suggestion that was great is that Dr. Muhammad Natsir should be translated into English and other languages, and collaboration should be now strengthened between the organizing institutions and other institutions to carry forward the things ahead. And then it was very important that for the future generations, we should carry the thought, and also we should carry the knowledge about the personalities who have been contributing to the world in terms of knowledge, welfare, and like that. Jazakallah. And now I am requesting, we are having with us Dr. Ahmed Totanji. He is Vice President of International Institute of Islamic Thought, USA. We welcome you to the conference. And I think we should have mentioned in the beginning as you were being with us, but I could find it only later on your visibility. I believe that you must be this time awakening at night and then being with us, taking all the trouble. We appreciate it. And over to you, Dr. Ahmed Totanji. Kindly bless us with your concluding remarks for the session as the chairman of the session. Over to you, Dr. Ahmed Totanji.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah thumma alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah alladhi hadana lihada wa ma kunna linahtadiya lawla an hadana Allah. My dear brothers and sisters, you can see from the beginning my voice is in bad shape. That is why I talked to the organizers and I said I'll just say a few words, and then inshallah my son Mohammad will read what experience I had with our great leader while I was doing a lot of work on the student and youth work on worldwide. And alhamdulillah, we achieved a lot. And it was one of the reasons why we were able to do this exceptionally well. People like him who would come and say, we see hope in what you are doing. Please include these things in it. Please do not forget our brothers and sisters in Indonesia to be with you in this. These leaders, they used to see things and what the ummah needs. And alhamdulillah, you have heard with these wonderful things which have been said about our great leader. I remember first time I met him in Hajj, there was a conference King Faisal had called for. This will be in the paper, you will see it. And I went in 1970 to him there, and every time we were getting from him the experiences he had, and also how to upgrade it when we are using it in our places. I will stop here and I'll say Mohammad, inshallah, my son, will speak. And one point I'll emphasize, I have learned a lot. We had a very, very great brother with him. And when in 1970 I came to Indonesia, he was the chief secretary of our leader. And since then, 50 years, we love him every day, a bit more than the day before. And that is Brother Muhammad Siddiq, ex-president of Diwan Da'wah Islamiyah, which was the da'wah which our leader brought to Indonesia and alhamdulillah to the world. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Muhammad Totanji.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. My dear brothers and sisters, or as they say in Indonesia, Saudara, Saudara, Saudari, Saudari, I am delighted to be with you today for this great conference, personality and contribution of Dr. Mohammad Nassir as a national and international thought leader in the 20th century. I am happy to speak about Dr. Mohammad Nassir and our relationship with him since 1965, when we met for the first time in Mecca al-Mukarramah, as I just mentioned, at the conference for which King Faisal had invited all the outstanding scholars and great personalities of the Muslim world to the Muslim World League. Alhamdulillah, it was a great conference which brought together these Muslim leaders and personalities from all over the world to Mecca al-Mukarramah and opened the door for them to network with each other in such a great event where King Faisal announced the concept of Islamic solidarity, which later became the organization of the Islamic Conference, OIC, which eventually became the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC. Alhamdulillah, the conference was a great success. And one of the highlights of the conference for all the Muslim delegations was the presence of His Excellency Dr. Mohammad Nassir, the first Prime Minister of Indonesia after independence. It was the first time for me to meet Dr. Mohammad Nassir, as well as many of the other delegates. It was the first time for them as well, and to spend some good time with him. I realized that I was with one of the great people of the Ummah. I immediately started taking notes to learn from his great experience. I was the president of the Muslim Students Association, MSA, of the US and Canada, which was established only 2 years before this conference. However, we had made a good impact in the Muslim world and elsewhere, and for the first time, some Muslim youth participated in the conference. Dr. Mohammad Nassir was very happy to hear about the MSA in America, and he had a lot of questions and a wealth of advice for us. When Dr. Mohammad Nassir learned that almost 50%, yes, about half the membership, almost 50% of MSA membership was postgraduate students, masters and PhD, and that they were the cream of the crop. They were the most brilliant Muslim students of the entire Ummah because they came from all over the world. I remember an important sentence from Dr. Mohammad Nassir. He said, "This is the future of Muslims." I repeat again, this is the future of Muslims. And I was very much surprised. He continued, "These bright people will bring the change which we are all waiting for." Now, after so many years, I am seeing some of his statements become a reality, reaffirming his great vision as a leader for the success of the Muslim Ummah, as though he was seeing it coming. Dr. Mohammad Nassir also shared with me some wonderful information about the youth and student movements in Indonesia. The Indonesian students in America were very few. And he said, "Please do not forget Indonesia when you have any conferences and meetings, so that our students and youth leaders can join you as well." Alhamdulillah, a lot of good came out of these meetings. And when we decided in 1969 in America to form an umbrella organization for the Muslim students organizations from all over the world, the International Islamic Federation of Student Organizations, IFSO, was born. I requested from Dr. Mohammad Nassir to give me some advice on what we should be doing in this new organization, IFSO, with 12 branches worldwide. I still remember his smile. He said, "Training programs for your youth students." Secondly, he said, "You should try to publish some of the outstanding books of the great Muslim leaders of our times for the students to become aware of them. He then added, you should translate these books to the languages of as many Muslim countries as possible. He also suggested to have many international Islamic conferences for the Muslim student organizations so that they will know each other and become familiar with each other's way of thinking. I was the first Secretary General of IFSO, and I shared the advice of Dr. Mohammad Nasir in our first executive committee meeting for us to study and make our future plans. The students were thrilled, and they saw the wisdom of this great man. His words shaped the future of the organization for decades to come. In about 7 years, we had Muslim Students Association, MSA, in about 45 to 50 countries. And IFSO became a true worldwide organization, which was also registered in the United Nations. Eventually, the branches became 500. As you are all very familiar, IFSO published about 40 books in the first batch of books that it was working on, and those books were translated to more than 100 languages. I had the opportunity to visit Indonesia in July 1970 and informed Dr. Mohammad Nasir that I was coming to visit Indonesia and to meet your students. Alhamdulillah, I had a few memorable days in this wonderful country during that visit, and I got the idea, why don't we change the Secretary General in IFSO every 2 years, while keeping the past Secretary Generals as members of the executive who passed their experiences to the new board. Alhamdulillah, we were able to elect the second Secretary General, Dr. Hisham Al-Talib, who is currently the president of IIIT as well, from America in 1975. And the third Secretary General was Dr. Imaduddin Abdul Rahim, the president of the Student Organization of Indonesia at that time. This enriched the relationship and facilitated how these student leaders must learn from each other to upgrade the youth activities all over the world. Dr. Mohammad Nasir worked very hard to convince the people of Indonesia to gather together and to work towards getting independence from the Netherlands. When they finally succeeded in getting their independence, with a lot of sacrifice, Dr. Mohammad Nasir became the first Prime Minister of Indonesia after the independence. Dr. Mohammad Nasir was the head of Diwan al-Da'wah al-Islamiyya in Indonesia, which Brother Muhammad Siddiq was holding until about 2 weeks ago. Brother Muhammad Siddiq, and I'm speaking on behalf of my father, I'm reading his speech, is a young man like my father, 30 years plus. So Brother Muhammad Siddiq was the chief secretary of Dr. Nasir the first time I visited them in Indonesia. He held some very important positions in OIC, the Islamic Development Bank, and the United Nations. And Alhamdulillah, he is still very active. Brother Muhammad Siddiq manages the activities of the IIIT in almost all of Indonesia. Brother Muhammad Siddiq completed his 5-year term as the executive chairman of Diwan al-Da'wah al-Islamiyya about 2 weeks ago, and he is currently the vice chairman and of its board of trustees. Diwan al-Da'wah al-Islamiyya has da'wah workers in almost every inhabited island of Indonesia. They are in thousands. And finally, the writings of Dr. Mohammad Nasir became the main source of inspiration and unification for the people of Indonesia to choose Islam until today. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed, for your presidential address. It was really very thoughtful and gave a lot many information about your personal relationship with Dr. Mohammad Nassir. You also reminded us about your youth. Your son looks very much like you when you were young. And even I could recall your presence in our many conferences of SIMI in Aligarh, in Bhopal, and other parts of the country. I also used to be very young at that time. So thank you very much for delivering this and reading out your father's address to us. And now it is my pleasant duty to say thanks to all the participants who made this inaugural session of the conference very successful. It was really an international event. I could see that more than 220 people have attended this program from many parts of the world, from India, from Indonesia, Malaysia, USA, and the Middle East. So it was a really truly international conference, and organized also by many institutions. Surely it was initiative of the Institute of Objective Studies of New Delhi, India. But we received cooperation and support, which we acknowledge with sincere thanks. We received support from Dr. Muhammad Siddiq, Diwan Dawa Islamia of Indonesia, and Ibn Khaldun University, Bogor, Indonesia. We appreciate and acknowledge their cooperation and support in organizing this conference very much, with sincere thanks. And we again appreciate that a lot many people have attended this conference from Indonesia, mainly from Ibn Khaldun University and other part of Indonesia. So we appreciate their cooperation and support in making this inaugural session of the conference very successful. I also take this opportunity to thank Professor Zadam Khan, who introduced to our international audience the Institute of Objective Studies, its multi-dimensional activities, the conferences we organize, the lectures we organize, and the academics works we are carrying out. He gave a very good introduction of the Institute of Objective Studies. Then we also thank Dr. Henry Tanjong, Vice Director, Postgraduate School, Ibn Khaldun University, who also introduced his organization as well as welcome the delegates of this international conference, webinar rather, on a very important personality, Dr. Mohammad Nassir. As we all know that this conference is being organized to discuss the personality as well as contribution of Dr. Mohammad Nassir of Indonesia. And then we thank Mr. Ahmed Fauzi Nassir. He is the son of Dr. Mohammad Nassir, whose contribution and life and personality is being discussed in this seminar. And he gave a brief profile of his father and introduced to us very unknown aspect of his personality, for which we are thankful to him. We also we are very grateful to Dr. Anwar, His Excellency Dr. Anwar Ibrahim, former Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia. He spoke at length about the contribution and personality of Dr. Mohammad Nassir. He knew him very well. Actually, he was the one who initially suggested to organize this seminar to discuss and appreciate and acknowledge the great contribution made by a great personality, Dr. Mohammad Nassir of Indonesia. So we thank Dr. Anwar Ibrahim very much for delivering the inaugural address of this conference. Then we had two guest of honors, His Excellency Dr. Joseph Kalla. He is a former Vice President of Republic of Indonesia. He spoke briefly, but well on point, and his thoughts were very relevant. And he shed some light on the life and personality of Dr. Mohammad Nasir, for which we are very much grateful to him. We are also grateful to Dr. Fadil Zone. We heard his recorded video, and then he gave, in the end, a brief address in which he gave us the main points of his message, which was already heard through recorded video. And then we also thank we are really very grateful to Professor Muhammad Kamal Hassan, former rector, International Islamic University of Malaysia, and a great professor, really a great scholar in his own right. He spoke at length about the life and personality of Dr. Mohammad Nasir. He covered almost all aspects of his personality and gave a very good account of his contribution to the promotion of democracy, Islam, and society in Malaysia through his lecture and also through the lecture of Dr. Muhammad Anwar Ibrahim. We could understand the multidimensional contribution of Dr. Mohammad Nasir, mainly in Indonesian politics. And this was really a new idea that instead of establishing an Islamic state, he sought a place for Islam in Indonesian polity through democratic means. So this is a new up, it was a sort of new discourse for us, for which and that has been highlighted very much by Professor Kamal Hassan Sahab, for which we are grateful to him. In the end, I would like to thank Dr. Mandur Anam Sahab, Chairman, Institute of Objective Studies. Sadly, he is not feeling well today, and that's why he could not complete his address. And due to the shortage of time, and anyway, that will be available on our website later on. And we also hope to publish the proceedings of the seminar. And in the end, I thank Dr. Ahmed Tudodji Sahab. He was also not feeling well, but he spoke a little bit, and then his concluding address, or presidential address, was read out by his son, Mohammad Tudodji. So we are thankful to both father and son for gracing this occasion and reading out the presidential address. With this, we come to the conclusion of this inaugural session of international conference that we have organized to discuss the personality, life, and contribution of Dr. Mohammad Nasir of Indonesia. Now we will break and gather again here at 1:30, and the link will be the same. And that will be our first technical session that will start at 1:30 p.m. and continue up to 3 p.m. And the topic that the panelists will be discussing in that session is Dr. Nasir's personal life, early days, and emergence as a national leader. That is the topic, and it will be chaired by Professor Muhammad Afzal Wani and Dr. Muhammad Siddiq from Indonesia, Dr. Nirwan Safrin from Ibn Khaldun University, Professor Hasina Ashia from Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi, Professor M. Fahim Akhtar Nadwi from Maulana Azad University of Hyderabad in India, and Dr. Kamal Ashraf Qasmi, who is Assistant Professor at Alia University, Kolkata. These are the panelists, and they will be discussing in the Dr. Mohammad Nasir's personality in the first technical session, starting at 1:30 p.m.
Indian recording Indian.
according to standard Indian time. Please, it may be noted by the international audience, and that means that what is the time right now here?
1:30. There is a difference of 1 and
no, time
3 p.m. 3 p.m. Indonesia. 3 p.m.
Right now it is 12 here. It means that almost after 1 hour and 20 minutes, 1 hour 20 minutes we will gather here, and so we request the international audience to be with us after 1 hour, again after 1 hour 15-20 minutes. Thank you very much.
The link is open during the break.
The link will be open during the break, so there won't be any problem when you join us again in the first technical session at 1:30 Indian Standard Time. Thank you very much.
बाकी सब ये वीडियो वाला था लेकिन कुछ भी डाल देंगे ये सब इसने हां ठीक वीडियो जब करता था अभी वो है कुछ हाल प्रॉब्लम कुछ है इसलिए कि लेकिन जैसे ही चला तो सब तक समान वो जिसका मतलब कुछ सेट कुछ है गड़बड़ जो नहीं हो पा रहा है यहाँ से तो कुछ ट्राई करेंगे इस मौके से तो अगर वो क्या सामने जो कभी अगला के वीडियो तो खुद ही बोलेंगे क्या करना ये बोलेंगे ना कहाँ बोलेंगे ये यहाँ नहीं कैसे बोलेंगे क्यों वो आई नहीं है ना हमने इसलिए रिकॉर्ड करके भेज दिया अभी आए थे ना तो कब कहाँ अरे आए ना भाई बोल के गए बता तो हूँ मैं ये 5वें नंबर वीडियो चलाया 8वें नंबर बोल के गए अच्छा आए थे बात कह के गए ना 5वें